My name is Helena. I'm 51 years old, and if my 12 years in the Special Forces taught me anything, it was the virtue of patience. And patience was exactly what I was exercising at that moment, standing near the weight area of Vigormax gym, as the smell of sweat and rubber filled the air. My eyes were fixed on a scene unfolding just a few feet away, a scene that made my stomach twist into an icy knot. There she was, Juliana, my husband's young and arrogant personal trainer. And there he was, Daniel, my husband of 20 years, laughing at something she whispered in his ear. Too close, far too intimate. The last straw wasn't the laugh. It wasn't the way her hand lingered on his arm for a second longer than necessary. It was the look Juliana shot me over Daniel's shoulder. A look of triumph, of disdain. A look that said, he's mine. And you? You're the past. In that instant, I knew the time for patience was over. The time for observation had ended. That arrogant, juvenile smirk had just lit a fuse I'd kept dormant for a very, very long time. And she had no idea what kind of explosion was coming. This story isn't about a broken heart. It's about what happens when you underestimate the wrong woman. If you, like me, believe that justice, when it finally arrives, should be served on a cold and unforgettable platter, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. You won't want to miss the conclusion, I guarantee it. Let's rewind a bit, 3 months to be exact. That's when the cracks started to appear in the facade of our perfect life. Daniel, always so predictable, suddenly became obsessed with the gym. The extra sessions with his new trainer, Juliana, became more frequent. He'd come home later, smelling of a cheap floral perfume that definitely wasn't mine, with a vacant smile on his lips that was never meant for me. The text messages started soon after. Little pings in the middle of the night. I'd see the glow of the phone screen illuminating his face in the darkness of our bedroom. When I asked who it was, the answer was always the same, delivered with a forced irritation. It's just Juliana, sending tomorrow's workout. You worry too much, Helena. Worry. It was such a small word for the storm that was brewing inside me. I wasn't a jealous wife by nature. My training taught me to separate facts from feelings. And the facts were clear. My husband's behavior had changed. The distance in his voice, the way he avoided my gaze, the new clothes he started buying, tighter, younger. They were pieces of a puzzle I didn't want to assemble, but they were fitting themselves together right in front of me. The confirmation came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I had left work early and decided to stop by our favorite coffee shop to grab a latte. And there they were, at a table in the corner. Daniel and Juliana. No gym clothes, no water bottles. Just 2 cups of coffee and their hands clasped together on the table. Her head was tilted, and he was looking at her with an adoration I hadn't seen directed at me in years. I didn't go in. I didn't make a scene. I just watched from my car across the street as the rain beat against the windshield, mimicking the tears that refused to fall from my eyes. I felt the blood turn to ice in my veins. It wasn't pain, not yet. It was a cold, sharp clarity. I processed the information like I would an intelligence report. The threat was confirmed. The enemy was identified. Now, it was time to plan the counteroffensive. My training in the Special Forces wasn't about brute strength. It was about strategy, about understanding your opponent, about exploiting their weaknesses. And the greatest weakness of Juliana and Daniel was their arrogance. They saw me as a middle-aged woman, a relic from Daniel's past. They thought I was blind, naive. They underestimated me, and that would be their fatal mistake. I spent the next few weeks gathering intel. I discreetly hired a private investigator, a former colleague from my unit who owed me a favor. He gave me a complete dossier, photos, schedules of their meetings, copies of hotel reservations. Each piece of evidence was like a brick, building the foundation of my revenge. Meanwhile, I played my part at home. The devoted wife, a bit distant perhaps. I became an actress. I'd ask about his day at the gym, listen to his lies about new bench press records, and I would smile. A smile that didn't reach my eyes. He never noticed. He was too blinded by his juvenile affair. There was another factor, one he was completely unaware of. His mother, a woman I loved as if she were my own, was battling an aggressive cancer. The treatment costs were astronomical, and insurance didn't cover everything. For the past few months, I had been working double time, taking on extra security consulting projects, draining my personal savings to pay for her care. My distance, my exhaustion, which Daniel interpreted as disinterest, was actually me fighting to save his mother's life. I never told him. I wanted him to focus on being with her, without the financial burden. The irony was so bitter it nearly choked me. He was spending our money on dinners and gifts for his mistress, while I was sacrificing everything for his family. And that brings us back to that day at the gym. Confrontation day. I knew it was coming. Juliana had been subtly provoking me for weeks. Comments passed off as compliments. "Wow, Helena, you look great for your age." Or, "Daniel told me you don't really like to break a sweat." There were little tests, little jabs to see if I would react. I absorbed it all, stored it, cataloged it. That afternoon, I didn't go to the gym to work out. I went for battle. I knew they would be there. The investigator had informed me that Daniel had canceled a visit to his mother at the hospital for an intensive training session. The rage, I felt, was a pure, white-hot fire. When I arrived, the scene was exactly as I'd expected. Daniel was showing off on the weights, with Juliana correcting his form, her hands lingering on his muscles. The usual gym crowd was around, some admiring, others indifferent. It was Juliana who made the first move. She saw me, and a malicious smile spread across her face. She walked over, her stride a mix of arrogance and conceit. "Helena, what a surprise to see you here," she said, her voice loud enough for everyone around to hear. "Came to watch the hubby in action? He's going hard today." I remained silent, just watching her. My silence seemed to unsettle her. She expected an outburst, tears, a typical scorn wife scene. I wouldn't give her that satisfaction. "You know," she continued, stepping even closer, the scent of that cheap perfume invading my space. "Daniel tells me everything. He says you've kind of let yourself go. It's a shame. A man like him needs a woman who can keep up." I felt the eyes of everyone in the gym turn to us. Cell phones started to be raised discreetly. Perfect. Exactly as I had planned. Her arrogance was leading her to make her mistake a public one. I slowly bent down and began to unlace my heavy, worn work boots. I placed them carefully to the side. I stood there, just in my socks on the rubber gym floor. A simple gesture, but one that shifted the dynamic. I was no longer a spectator. I was stepping into the arena. Juliana laughed. A sharp, unpleasant sound. "What's this? The old lady gonna try and lift some weights? Be careful not to break a hip." The crowd chuckled with her. Daniel, in the background, looked uncomfortable but did nothing to intervene. His cowardice was as disappointing as his infidelity. I straightened up, finally looking Juliana in the eyes. My training taught me to control my breathing, to keep my heart rate low even under extreme stress. I was calm, focused. "Juliana," I began, my voice sounding clear and steady in the noisy room. "How long have you been training my husband?" She was caught off guard by the direct question. "What? Oh, about 3 months. Why?" 3 months, I repeated, nodding slowly. "Interesting. And in these 3 months, do you really think you've learned anything about him? About me?" She crossed her arms, her arrogance returning. "I know he's not happy, and I know I'm the reason he smiles now." "You're the reason for a lot of things, Juliana, but happiness isn't one of them," I said, taking a step forward. "You're a symptom, a miscalculation, a variable that I've allowed to continue for far too long." The confusion on her face was delicious. She didn't understand. She still thought she was in control. "What are you talking about, you crazy woman?" she spat. "I'm talking about strategy," I replied. "You see this place as a gym. I see it as a battlefield. And you've just made the most basic tactical error of all. You underestimated your opponent and chose to fight on terrain that I control. And then she attacked. It was a telegraphed, clumsy right hook. Probably something she saw in a movie. To me, it looked like it was in slow motion. I moved to the side, not with the speed of youth, but with the efficiency of training. Her fist whistled through the air where my head had been a second before. With a fluid motion, I placed my foot behind hers and pushed her shoulder. She didn't fall hard. She stumbled off balance and landed awkwardly on the mat. A murmur went through the crowd. The phones were now all pointed directly at us, openly recording. Juliana scrambled to her feet, her face red with anger and humiliation. You. She came at me again, this time with a blind rage. She swung wildly. I didn't attack her. I just defended. I dodged one punch, blocked another. With each of her movements, I made a small adjustment, a slight shift, using her own momentum against her. I made her trip twice more. The third time, she fell near the dumbbell rack. Your feet, I said calmly as she got up. You're keeping them too wide. It destroys your balance. And you're looking where you're about to punch. An amateur would do that. I thought a personal trainer would know the basics of biomechanics. The public humiliation was breaking her. Her eyes flashed, and she did something incredibly stupid. She grabbed a 10-pound dumbbell. The atmosphere in the gym changed instantly. What had been a verbal confrontation and a clumsy scuffle now had the potential to become far more serious. "Drop it, Juliana," I said, my voice losing all its calm and taking on a tone of steel command. The tone I used in the field. She hesitated, the weight trembling in her hand. "Stay away from me." I moved fast. Before she could even think of swinging the weight, I was on her. I didn't strike her. I grabbed her wrist, my fingers finding a nerve cluster I knew very well. I applied precise, firm pressure. She cried out a sharp yelp of pain and shock, and the dumbbell fell to the floor with a dull thud. I released her, and she backed away, cradling her wrist, her face pale. "That," I said, speaking to her and to all the recording phones, "is called assault with a weapon. It's a felony. Years in prison. Something that would utterly ruin the career of a young and promising personal trainer. Do you understand?" She just stared at me, her eyes wide with fear. The arrogance was completely gone. Now, it was time for the second phase of the attack, the part that truly mattered. I turned to the crowd. "Are you all recording? Good. Please continue. The show is just getting started." My gaze found Daniel, who was standing frozen near a leg press machine. His face was white as a sheet. "Daniel, honey," I called out. "Come on over. Be a part of the party. You're the star of the show, after all." He didn't move. "All right," I said with a shrug. "I can do this from here." I turned back to Juliana, who was still cradling her wrist. "You think this was about you pushing me? Or about you sleeping with my husband? That's so small, so trivial. My training wasn't to learn how to fight, Juliana. It was to learn how to identify threats, to learn how to gather intelligence, and most importantly, to learn how to recognize when someone is, knowingly or not, leaking information to the enemy." I took my phone out of my pocket. I opened the photo gallery. "See, while you were busy sending late-night texts to my husband," I said, showing the first photo to the crowd, a clear shot of them kissing in a restaurant parking lot. "I was busy documenting. Here you are at the Garden Cafe last Tuesday, and here, at the entrance of the Vista Hotel 2 weeks ago. The file is quite comprehensive, I assure you." The color drained from Daniel's face. Juliana looked like she was going to be sick. "But that's still not the main point," I continued, my voice growing louder, filled with a cold, controlled emotion. "The point is the why. Daniel, did you tell her I was distant? That I was tired? That I didn't care anymore?" He finally found his voice. "Helena, please don't do this here." "Here? This is the perfect stage. The one your girlfriend chose." I shot back. You want to know why I was distant, Daniel? I'll tell you. I was distant because I was on the phone with your mother's doctors. I was tired because I was working double shifts on my consulting job to afford the extra $20,000 her chemotherapy treatment cost this month, because your wonderful health insurance didn't cover it. I was selling stocks I inherited from my father to make sure your mother had the best possible care. Something I planned on never telling you so you wouldn't be burdened. A shocked silence fell over the gym. Even the background music seemed to have stopped. While you were buying expensive dinners and new clothes for her, I said, gesturing dismissively at Juliana, I was transferring money that was meant for our retirement into the hospital's account. Your lack of attention wasn't because I changed. It was because you were so absorbed in your pathetic selfishness that you couldn't see what was happening right in front of your face. I dialed a number on my phone. I put it on speaker. After a few rings, Daniel's voice came through, confused. Helena? What is it? Is everything okay? I smiled, a smile with no warmth. Hi, honey. Just wanted to let you know I'm here at Vigor Max with Juliana and about 50 of our new friends who are very interested in our personal lives. You're on speakerphone. Say hi to everyone. The silence on the line was deafening. Oh, and Daniel. I continued. When you go home tonight, don't bother going to our house. The divorce papers are on the kitchen table. My lawyer, the one you said was too aggressive, has already filed. Oh, and by the way, I emptied our joint accounts this morning. I used the money to prepay for the next 6 months of your mother's treatment and for the down payment on my new apartment. The evidence of your infidelity, thanks to our private investigator friend, ensures you won't get a dime. It's what we call a morality clause in our prenup. Remember that. I could hear his ragged breathing on the other end of the line. As for you, Juliana, I turned to the girl who was now crying silently. I suggest you start looking for a new career, because when these videos go viral, and they will, no respectable gym will want to hire a trainer who sleeps with clients and tries to assault them with dumbbells. Most gyms have, how should I put it, morality clauses in their contracts, too. Good luck. I hung up the phone. At that moment, the gym door flew open and Daniel ran in, his face a mask of panic and disbelief. He saw the crowd, the phones, Juliana's tear-streaked face, and me, standing in the center of it all, calm and in control. Our eyes met across the room. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Juliana took the opportunity and fled. She rushed past Daniel and out the door, disappearing down the street. A coward to the end. Daniel stood there, alone, the target of dozens of scornful stares. I picked up my work boots. Calmly, I began to put them on. It's over, Daniel, I said without looking at him. I walked over to the gym manager, who was watching everything with his jaw on the floor from behind the counter. I think you'll want to review your policies on trainer conduct, and maybe invest in better liability insurance. I walked past Daniel on my way to the door. He tried to grab my arm. Helena, wait. I stopped and looked down at his hand on my arm and then up at his face. Don't touch me, I said with a voice so cold it made him flinch back as if he'd been burned. You made your choice. Now live with it. And I walked out of Vigor Max gym, leaving the ruins of my old life behind me. I didn't look back. For the first time in months, I took a deep breath and the air felt clean. The battle was over, and I had won. 6 months have passed. Life, as it always does, went on. The videos, as I predicted, went viral. Gym Rage or Special Forces Vet Exposes Cheating Husband were some of the titles. Vigor Max Gym closed its doors 2 months later. The tarnished reputation was impossible to clean. Juliana Rodriguez vanished from the fitness industry. Last I heard, she was working at a supplement shop in another state. Daniel. The divorce was swift and brutal for him. The evidence was irrefutable. He got nothing but his debts and his shame. He moved in with his sister. His mother, thankfully, is in remission. I continue to send money for her treatment anonymously through my lawyer. She doesn't deserve to suffer for her son's mistakes. And me? I found peace. In a new apartment with a view of the mountains, in a new beginning. I started running again every morning, not to escape something, but to feel the strength in my own lungs, the power in my own legs. The revenge, in the end, wasn't about the confrontation in the gym. That was just the execution of a plan. The real revenge was rediscovering the woman I was before him, before the betrayal. A woman who is strong, self-sufficient, and finally free. Justice isn't just about punishing the wrongdoers. It's about reclaiming what they took from you. And I reclaimed myself. And that is the sweetest victory of all. Now you tell me, what would you have done in my place? Would you have chosen the same strategy, or would your revenge have a different flavor? Leave your opinion in the comments below. I'd love to know. And if you enjoy stories where justice prevails, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter. Until next time.